the widow and the gunman. The desert breathed heat like a furnace. Red dust curled in the air as the sun bled over the mesas, and the cry of a hawk drifted across the canyon. Cole Mercer's horse stood still, nostrils flaring, hooves planted in cracked earth. Cole shaded his eyes against the glare and spotted the faint wisp of smoke rising beyond the ridge. "Campfire," he muttered, voice dry as sand. "Or trouble." He rode closer. Cole had seen enough of both. Once a Union scout, now just a wandering cowboy with a worn rifle and too many ghosts, he'd learned to read the desert like scripture. A single trail of smoke out here meant someone wasn't hiding, or didn't know they should be. The fire's glow flickered weakly when he reached the ridge. Below, in a hollow of stone, a small figure knelt by the fire, her dark hair tangled by the wind. A rifle leaned against the rocks beside her. Her shoulders were tense, her hands moving with quiet purpose as she stirred something in a battered pot. Cole dismounted slowly, boots crunching against the gravel. She heard him before he spoke. Her head snapped up, eyes sharp as obsidian, and in an instant she had the rifle aimed straight at his chest. "Don't move," she said, her voice steady but soft. The accent carried a rhythm that marked her Apache roots. Cole froze. "Easy, ma'am. I ain't lookin' for a fight." "You followed me," she said. "I followed the smoke." They stood locked in silence, the desert wind whispering between them, the fire crackling low. Cole could see now that she was young, maybe mid-20s, her face lined not by age but grief. She wore a tattered cotton dress under a man's old coat. Around her neck hung a simple leather cord with a carved bone charm. Cole lifted a hand slowly, palm outward. "Mind if I lower my hand to take a drink? Ain't got much water left." Her rifle wavered. "You carry a gun?" "Sure do. I carry a conscience, too. I use both careful." A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. Cole saw it, the faint tremble of someone more tired than afraid. He took a careful step closer, then another. "Don't come closer," she warned. "Lady," he said quietly, "you're sittin' in Apache country. Army patrols been through twice this week. They see smoke, they shoot first. You oughta move before dawn." Her eyes narrowed. "I have nowhere to go." Something in her tone stopped him cold. There was truth there, raw and final. Cole sighed. "Name's Mercer. Cole Mercer." She hesitated. "Naya." "Well, Miss Naya, I ain't got much more than a horse and half a canteen, but I reckon 2 lost souls are better than 1. Her gaze softened slightly, but she didn't lower the rifle. Cole glanced at the small pile of stones near the fire, rough, uneven, a makeshift grave. His chest tightened. He understood now. That wasn't just a campfire. That was mourning. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Your husband." Naya's hands tightened around the rifle. Her lips pressed into a line, and for a moment her mask slipped. Pain flared across her face. "Soldiers," she whispered. "They came last week. He would not run. He fought." Her voice caught. "He fell." Cole's jaw hardened. "I'm sorry for that." She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Why do you care, white man?" "'Cause I've buried too many of my own," he said. "And it don't matter what color the dirt is, it still covers the same pain." The wind stirred again. The rifle lowered an inch. "Go," she said. "Please. Before they see you here." Cole shook his head. "Not leavin' you to die out here." Her eyes flashed. "You think I am weak?" "No, ma'am," Cole said softly. "I think you're strong. But even strong folk get shot if they don't see it comin'." For the first time, her lips almost curved, a ghost of a smile. "You talk too much. Been told that before." The sun sank lower. Shadows stretched long over the rocks. Naya finally lowered her rifle all the way and sat by the fire again. Cole didn't move closer. He just crouched a few yards away, watching her stir the pot in silence. The smell of beans and wild herbs filled the air. After a while, she spoke again, voice quiet. "Why are you here, Cole Mercer?" He stared into the flames. "Was looking for a man who sold out my company at Palo Duro. Heard he might be hidin' near the border. Guess I took a wrong trail." "Revenge," she said. He shrugged. "Maybe just closure. The line's blurry these days." Naya's eyes flicked toward the horizon, where night gathered in shades of violet. "Revenge brings no peace." "Maybe not," he said. "But sometimes it's all a man's got left." Her gaze met his again, steady and sad. "You think you are alone in loss?" Cole looked away. The fire popped, sending sparks spiraling into the dark. Later, as the stars burned high, a coyote howled in the distance. Cole was dozing near his horse when the sound of hoofbeats shattered the night. Naya sprang to her feet, clutching her rifle. Cole was already moving, sliding behind a boulder. Two riders approached, lanterns swinging, uniforms faintly glinting in the moonlight. "Army scouts," he hissed. "Stay low." The soldiers' voices drifted through the air. "Smoke came from over here. Probably hostiles." Naya's breath came fast. "They will kill me." Cole cursed under his breath. "Not if I can help it." He grabbed his saddlebag and pulled her down behind the rocks just as the riders crested the ridge. One of them swung the lantern toward the fire pit. "Over here." Cole's rifle came up. The soldier turned, saw movement, and raised his weapon. The crack of a gunshot split the night, then silence. When the dust cleared, one soldier was on the ground, clutching his arm. The other shouted and fled into the dark, his horse pounding away into the distance. Cole's hands shook slightly as he lowered the gun. "Didn't aim to kill. Just warn." Naya stared at him, eyes wide. "You would fight your own people?" "I ain't got people," he said roughly. "Not anymore." She looked at him for a long moment, then slowly reached out and touched his sleeve. "Then, maybe now you do." By dawn, they were riding east together, two shadows against a pale red sky. Neither spoke much. The silence between them was heavy, but it wasn't hostile. It was something new, something fragile. Cole looked at her as the sun rose, her hair glinting with copper in the light. The rifle rested across her lap, but her posture was calmer now. Trust was growing, inch by inch, like grass pushing through desert soil. He didn't know where the trail would lead, but for the first time in years, he felt something like purpose. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the grit and the guilt, hope began to stir. Ashes of the heart. The morning broke quiet and golden over the desert. Thin clouds drifted above the mesas, and the air smelled of wet earth from last night's rain. Cole Mercer rode a few paces behind Naya, watching the way her dark braid swayed against her back, catching the sunlight like a black ribbon. They had ridden together in silence for hours. The land rolled out before them, endless and unforgiving, but somehow it didn't feel quite as lonely as it had before. Cole cleared his throat. "You always ride this early?" Naya didn't turn. "The desert wakes before men do. If you listen close, you can hear it breathe." He smiled faintly. "Never thought of it that way." "The land speaks," she said softly. "But most people have forgotten its voice." He watched her profile against the morning light, the calm steadiness of her eyes, the quiet strength in her posture. He'd met plenty of people broken by loss, but Naya carried hers like a hidden flame. They stopped at a narrow creek that trickled down from the rocks. Naya dismounted, knelt beside the water, and filled her canteen. Cole joined her, splashing cold water on his face. "You ever think of leavin' this land?" he asked. "Startin' somewhere new?" Naya's fingers stilled on the canteen. "No. My people's bones rest here. The wind still remembers their names. If I leave, who will remember them?" Cole stared at the rippling water. "You sound like you've made peace with the past." Her voice grew quiet. "Peace is for those who stop remembering. I cannot." He looked at her then, really looked. Her eyes were steady, but behind them was a sadness that could swallow the sky. "You lost more than your husband, didn't you?" he asked gently. Naya didn't answer for a moment. Then, with a slow breath, she said, "They burned our village. My husband fought to protect our son. He was only 5. Cole's chest tightened. "Naya." She shook her head. "No need for words. The soldiers believed we raided a wagon train. They did not ask questions. They only took." Cole set his canteen aside, his throat dry despite the water. "You ever see the ones who did it?" "One of them wore a silver cross on his belt," she said. "That is all I remember." He frowned. "A cross?" She nodded. "You know him?" Cole hesitated. He remembered a man, Jeb Calder, who'd worn a silver cross exactly like that. The same man who'd betrayed his company years ago. The same man he'd been chasing across the border. But he said nothing. "Not yet." Instead, he said quietly, "Then maybe justice ain't done yet." Naya looked at him. "Justice?" She shook her head. "There is no such thing. Only revenge, and revenge never fills an empty heart." Cole smiled sadly. "You might be right." By afternoon, the sun had turned harsh again. They found shelter under a wide rock ledge, where the air was cool and the shade deep. Cole built a small fire, and Naya unpacked a few dried herbs from her pouch. The scent of sage and smoke filled the air. Cole leaned back, watching her hands move, precise, graceful. "You always travel alone?" She nodded. "Since the soldiers came. My husband's people scattered to the hills. I stayed to bury what was left." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You're stronger than most men I've met." Her gaze lifted. "Strength is not something to boast of. It is something to survive by." He smiled. "You speak like a teacher." She smiled faintly in return. "My grandmother was one. She taught me the ways of healing, herbs, prayers, songs. She said every wound can close if the spirit wants it to." Cole stared into the fire. "What if the spirit don't want to heal?" "Then," she said softly, "you find another spirit to remind it why it should." He looked up at her, the firelight flickering across her face. "Maybe that's easier said than done." Naya's eyes lingered on him for a moment before turning back to the flames. "Maybe not," she whispered. That night, after they had eaten, Cole took a battered harmonica from his coat pocket. "Ain't played this in a while," he said, rubbing it on his sleeve. "Figure the desert won't mind." He brought it to his lips and began to play, a low, aching tune that drifted through the stillness. It wasn't fancy, but it was honest. Naya closed her eyes, listening. When the song ended, she said quietly, "It sounds like morning." He smiled faintly. "Guess that's what it is. Used to play it for the men after the war. Helped the silence feel smaller." "Then play again," she said. "For those who cannot listen anymore." He did. And when he finished, she looked at him in a way that made his chest ache. "You have sadness in your hands, Cole Mercer," she said. He laughed softly. "You ain't wrong. Why do you keep it?" "Maybe, 'cause it's the only thing that stayed." Naya turned the small leather pouch at her neck over in her fingers. "I keep what stayed too." She loosened the string and opened it, sprinkling a pinch of gray ash into the fire. The flames flared blue for a heartbeat. Cole frowned gently. "That your husband?" She nodded. "The rest I left where he fell. But a piece travels with me." Cole swallowed. "You still talk to him?" "Every night," she said. "He does not answer, but I think he listens." He nodded slowly. "That's all most folks ever hope for." The fire cracked softly between them. For a while, neither spoke. Then Naya said, "And you, Cole Mercer, who do you talk to when the fire burns low?" He thought for a long time. "No one," he said finally. "Ain't had anyone listen in years." "Then I will listen," she said simply. He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time in a long while, he believed someone meant it. When dawn came, the desert was pale and quiet. A light mist hung low over the ground. Cole woke to find Naya already on her feet, feeding the horses. "You don't sleep much," he said. She shook her head. "Sleep brings dreams. Dreams bring memories." He stood beside her, close enough to see the faint scar along her temple, the mark of an old wound. "You ever think maybe memories are all that keep us human?" She smiled faintly. "No. Kindness does." He felt that settle deep inside him. They rode again through the hills, the air cool and clean. Every so often, he caught her glancing back to see if he followed. When their eyes met, she didn't look away anymore. By midday they stopped under a cottonwood tree by a dry riverbed. Cole dismounted, stretched his back, and said, "You ever smile, Naya?" She raised an eyebrow. "You think I don't?" "Not much," he teased. "Figure it'd suit you." For the first time, she laughed, a soft, surprised sound that made him grin. "There it is," he said. Knew it was in there somewhere. Her laughter faded, but the warmth stayed in her eyes. You are strange, Cole Mercer. You speak as if you have known me for years. Feels like I have, he said quietly. She looked at him a long time, then turned away. You should not say such things. Why not? Because the desert has a cruel sense of humor. It gives hope only to take it away. He stepped closer, his voice low. Then maybe it's time someone gave it back. For a heartbeat, they stood in silence, the wind carrying the scent of sage and dust between them. Her gaze met his, guarded, uncertain, but not unwilling. Hope is dangerous, she said finally. So's living without it, he replied. That night, the stars burned bright as silver. They camped near a cluster of rocks where the firelight flickered like gold across their faces. Naya sat close to the flames, humming softly, a low, haunting melody that made the air seem alive. What's that song? Cole asked. A lullaby my mother sang, she said. For when the world was cruel and the night was long. It's beautiful, he murmured. She smiled sadly. You would not say that if you understood the words. It is a prayer for the dead. Maybe the dead like being remembered, he said. Maybe. Her eyes lifted to his. And you, what do you pray for, Cole Mercer? He thought a moment, then said, Forgiveness. Though I ain't sure who from. Naya's expression softened. Then perhaps you are already halfway there. He chuckled softly. You make it sound easy. Nothing worth keeping ever is, she said. He watched the flames dance between them, shadows playing across her face. Without thinking, he reached out and brushed a stray lock of hair from her cheek. She didn't flinch. For a moment, the world held its breath. Then she looked down, her voice a whisper. Be careful, Cole Mercer. The desert remembers every promise. He smiled faintly. Then I'll make sure mine's worth remembering. And for the first time in years, when he lay down beside the dying fire, Cole dreamed not of ghosts or battles or blood, but of the sound of her laughter in the desert wind. The promise of rain. The desert lay quiet under a bruised sky. Clouds were gathering to the north, heavy, dark, and full of thunder. Naya rode beside Cole in silence, her eyes fixed on the far-off horizon. They had traveled 3 days since the storm, 3 days of uneasy calm. But Cole could feel it, the way the land itself seemed to hold its breath. Something was coming. He'd seen that kind of quiet before the bullets started flying. Storms rollin' in, he said. Naya's gaze flicked upward. Yes. But not only from the sky. Cole frowned. You feelin' something? She nodded. The land changes its song when danger walks it. He didn't question her. He'd learned by now that when Naya spoke like that, she was rarely wrong. By midday, they reached a canyon split by a narrow stream. They stopped to water the horses and rest. Cole knelt by the creek, washing the dust from his hands. Naya sat nearby, turning something over in her fingers, a small silver cross, weathered by years of wear. Cole's breath caught. Where'd you get that? He asked. She looked up. From one of the soldiers who came to our home. It fell when he left. Cole stared at the cross. I've seen that before. You know him? Yeah, he said quietly. Name's Jeb Calder. The man I've been chasing. Naya's eyes hardened. He was the one. Cole nodded slowly. I reckon so. For a moment, there was only the whisper of wind through the canyon. Then the spirits brought us together for a reason, she said. Yours is vengeance. Mine is truth. Cole shook his head. Maybe once. But not anymore. She studied him. You would let him go. He hesitated. Used to think killin' him would set things right. But I've seen enough blood to know it never does. Naya looked at him with quiet respect. Then perhaps you are wiser than most. He smiled faintly. Don't know about wise. Just tired. They made camp at the mouth of the canyon that evening. The wind carried the smell of rain and distant gunpowder. Cole sat cleaning his rifle while Naya cooked a small pot of beans and wild roots. You think he'll find us? She asked. Calder. Cole nodded toward the canyon. If he's still breathin', he'll come. Men like him don't leave debts unpaid. Naya stirred the fire, her voice calm. Then we will meet him together. Cole looked at her, a mixture of pride and worry tightening in his chest. You don't have to fight my fight, Naya. She smiled faintly. And you did not have to fight mine. Yet you did. He chuckled. Guess that makes us even. She shook her head. No. It makes us bound. Cole blinked, caught off guard by her words, and the quiet certainty in them. The rain came just after sunset. It began as a whisper, then built to a wild drumming that filled the canyon. The fire hissed under the downpour, and the air turned cool and alive. Cole pulled his coat tighter and glanced at Naya. She stood just outside the shelter of the rocks, her face turned upward to the rain. "You'll catch cold," he said. She smiled. "The rain remembers our prayers. It washes the ghosts." He stepped out beside her. "And what do you pray for?" "For peace," she said. "For both of us." The rain slid down her cheeks like tears, though her eyes were steady. Cole reached out and brushed a droplet from her face. His fingers lingered, tracing the line of her jaw. She didn't pull away. For a long moment, the world seemed to fade, the rain, the storm, the fear. There was only her. "Cole Mercer," she whispered, "the desert brought you to me. Do you think it was chance?" He shook his head. "No, ma'am. I reckon it was mercy." She smiled then, soft and trembling. "Then let us not waste it." They barely had time to breathe before the thunder of horses echoed through the canyon. Cole stiffened, hand going to his gun. "Get back," he hissed. Naya grabbed her rifle and ducked behind a boulder. 5 riders burst into view, torches flaring through the rain, and at their head rode Jeb Calder, silver cross glinting on his belt. Cole's jaw tightened. "It's him." Calder's voice rang out, cruel and mocking. "Well, I'll be damned. Cole Mercer, the ghost of Palo Duro himself. Thought you'd gone to rot in the desert." "Guess I'm hard to bury," Cole shouted back. Calder laughed. "You got something that belongs to me, that woman. Apache scum belongs in chains." Before Cole could answer, Naya fired. The shot cracked through the rain, and one of Calder's men toppled from his horse. Calder snarled. "You'll pay for that, girl." Cole fired next, taking down another rider. The canyon erupted in gunfire, thunder echoing with each shot. Horses screamed, men shouted, and the storm roared around them. Naya moved like lightning, reloading between rocks, her aim sure and steady. Cole fought beside her, every muscle burning. When the smoke thinned, only Calder remained, his horse wounded, his face twisted in rage. He charged forward, firing wildly. Cole's gun clicked empty, he ducked behind the boulder as bullets chipped the stone. Then, silence. Cole stepped out, rain running down his face. Calder was standing in the open, gun raised, grin cold as death. "This is where it ends, Mercer," he sneered. Cole looked at him, voice low. "Yeah, it does." A single shot cracked, not from Cole, but from behind. Calder's eyes widened. He looked down at his chest, where blood bloomed through his coat, and fell into the mud. Naya stood behind him, rifle smoking in her hands. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The rain fell harder, washing the blood into the earth. Cole walked over, knelt beside the fallen man, and picked up the silver cross. He stared at it for a while, then tossed it into the river. "Let the water keep it," he said quietly. They buried Calder in a shallow grave at dawn. Naya said a few words in her language, words Cole didn't understand but felt deep in his bones. When it was done, they stood in silence, watching the sun break over the canyon rim. "It's over," Cole said. She looked at him. "No. Now it begins." He met her gaze, unsure. "What do you mean?" "You came here to end a hunt. But perhaps you found something else." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I did." They packed their gear and rode east as the morning light spread across the desert. The world felt different now, lighter, cleaner. At midday, they stopped beneath a cottonwood tree, the same one where she had laughed days before. Cole turned to her, his voice gentle. "Naya, you ever think of settling down? Somewhere quiet?" She smiled. "With who?" "With me," he said simply. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she dismounted, walked to him, and placed her hand over his heart. "You would take an Apache widow as your bride?" she asked softly. He caught her hand, holding it against his chest. "I'd take you as my whole world." Her eyes shimmered in the sunlight. "Then promise me this, Cole Mercer. If the world turns cruel again, you will not run from it." He nodded. "Not while I've got you to stand with." And there, under the wide desert sky, she leaned forward and kissed him, not out of gratitude or fear, but out of something stronger, something born of fire and loss and the quiet mercy of two broken hearts finding one another. When they broke apart, the wind shifted, carrying the smell of rain again, soft, distant, and clean. Naya smiled. "The land remembers." Cole grinned. "Then let it remember this." They rode on together, side by side, toward the rising sun, two survivors, no longer haunted, but finally free.